There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to sunny Owen Sound. It's wonderful to welcome all of you here to BWXT for the official launch event of the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, co-hosted by the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council, Nuclear Innovation Institute, and the City of Owen Sound. We also welcome such a wide array and a wonderful array, some of you are away, but array of public, private, and academic representatives. And thank you so much all for being here. We first want to acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and the culture of the Anishinaabe people who consist of the people of the three fires known as the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations, in whose traditional territories we gather, and whose ancestors signed treaties with our ancestors. We recognize also the Métis and Inuit, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all as treaty people live with respect in this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. So first of all, I'd like to invite Scott Gray, Executive Vice President of Projects and Field Services with the BWXT Canada, to the podium. Come on up, Scott.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Bodie, for your remarks, and welcome to you and everyone here to BWXT's Owen Sound manufacturing facility. We were talking a little bit earlier, and to come to realize that we now have more possibilities for our facility here. We thought we'd just be doing manufacturing, but now we can do weddings and other parties, dances. Somebody suggested a disco ball. But anyway, possibilities are endless. I'm pleased to join you today on behalf of BWXT for this important event that marks another advancement in support of the Canadian isotope industry. Thank you, Jessica Linthorne and Paul McGrath, for inviting BWXT to participate in today's event. We're delighted to be the site for today's exciting announcements. Safety is paramount when it comes to everything we do here at BWXT and across the wider nuclear industry. At BWXT, we treat safety as a value, not a priority. Priorities change, but our values are steadfast. So with that, I want to just give you a brief safety message. So first of all, while there's work that may be going on the other side of the curtain, we've set everything up so you're quite isolated from the rest of the facility, so everything in here is safe. You have safe access ways from the front of the building as well as through the black curtains to the back of the building. Restrooms are located in the front, which I think Terry talked to you about as you came in. We do not have any fire drills scheduled for today, but in the unlikely event that something does occur and we need to evacuate the building, I'll ask everyone to please exit through the back, through the curtains here, out the back door, and far away from the building out there so we can account for everybody. So, and I will follow behind everybody to make sure that everybody safely exits the building. Members of our BWXT team are first aid qualified, should we need them. And if the announcement today from James is too much of a surprise, we do have an AED on the wall up front. For those of you that don't know, in addition to being the largest manufacturer of nuclear components in North America and delivering projects and services for the CANDU fleet, BWXT entered the medical isotope business back in 2018 when we acquired Sotera Health's Nordion Medical Isotope division. Since then, BWXT has developed a unique technology for the production of Moly-99, which is used in over 110,000 imaging procedures across the world every day, 40 million annually. This technology that we developed eliminates the residual uranium waste that occurs with the current supply of Moly-99 from research reactors across the world, and will provide a stable supply of this critical diagnostic isotope to patients throughout North America. Through our investment in our state-of-the-art facilities in Canada and Vancouver, As well as in our innovative technologies, BWXT is helping, like many of you here, to secure a reliable supply of high-quality nuclear medicine products and services. Isotopes for Hope, the report published by the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Coalition earlier this year, said it best. Canada possesses the unique capacity to develop and export this value chain expertise internationally to connect patients with life-saving isotopes around the world. At the end of the day, it's going to take a Team Canada approach to build an isotope ecosystem that will maximize Canada's position in the global industry and increase the supply and stability of these life-saving products for patients. BWXT is pleased to be working with and alongside the CNIC, the newly formed Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, and others in the industry to help advance this important work. Thank you. Hey, Bodhi.
It's great. Thank you very much, Scott. We do note and thank the BWXT staff for shutting down for an hour or two while we're here so we can hear ourselves, and we thank them for joining us. I see a few at the back. So, what is the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition? Simple terms, a coalition is an alliance of diverse groups coming together for the purpose of effecting specific change or achieving a goal. Change that, acting alone or as individuals, they would otherwise be unable to realize as easily or as quickly or perhaps at all. Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition has been formed with that as its core, accomplishing big things, important, and ultimately life-saving things that we want to achieve. Something that each of us working individually would be unable to do, again, as quickly or as easily. This region has so many strengths in how it supports Canada's national imperative and vision to increase the production, development, and use of medical isotopes in the global fight against cancer. To do this, we are gathering today together with educational institutions, our medical research, treatment, and training facilities, local regional governments, so that's being municipal and county government, and Indigenous communities. We're gathering industrial groups, firms, and visionary entrepreneurs leading isotope technology, innovation, and manufacturing sectors. Why a regional isotope coalition and why here? And quite simply, it's in the name of the CNIC's report, Isotope for Hope. We hope to provide the best cancer treatment and other medical services to our residents and people around the world. We hope to see our students be able to become global leaders in isotope technologies and treatment. And we hope to work together to attract private and public investment throughout the Grey Bruce Huron region for research, development, manufacturing, and processing. Through the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, we will increase communication among groups, bring about more effective and efficient delivery of programs, eliminate unnecessary duplication of effort, and we will develop and use our political weight to gain services and other benefits for the regional community. So lobbying federal governments, lobbying provincial governments. I noticed a little bit of research that south of the border, the U.S. Economic Development, I'm going to say agency, but I think it's an A word, it'll hit me in a minute, not agency, are about to spend $10 billion over the next 5 years to support regional tech hubs. The types of things we're talking about. They're putting a lot of money into it. Administration, there's the word I was looking for. You know, another example, South Carolina, the Research Triangle Park, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham, that area, 9 different counties are involved pulling together. They're one of the largest tech hubs and apparently the most successful worldwide tech hub of working together, pulling together different technologies in their community. And part of what they're doing is apparently annually they're the top third in medical technology and development, medical research. So those are the types of things we can do if we work together. Our area is already poised for success. Isogen's partnership with Bruce Power produces the world's largest, most reliable supply of life-saving, short-lived medical isotopes. We have cancer treatment at the regional Bright Shores Health Systems. Georgian College's Owen Sound campus, which is covering all of Grey Bruce or supports all of Grey Bruce, will help provide the education, training, and talent pool to expand programming to work with the current and future needs of the medical isotope industry. McMaster University is doing so much great research, and they're just a little bit out of the region, but part of this region. The key to our shared success is partnerships with community members through leaders and public-private sector stakeholders like you to achieve our goal. So today I hope you will take this opportunity to listen and learn from our phenomenal group of panelists, as well as network with a wide variety of community members here today. I hope you will consider joining Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition as a regional collaborative partner, because we are stronger when we collaborate, innovate, and grow together. So I'm pleased to welcome at this point James Skoniak, Chair of the CNIC, Jessica Linthorne, Chief Operating Officer of the Nuclear Innovation Institute. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And thanks Gary Byers for making sure that we all sound great today, and this space looks fabulous too. So I do want to start by saying thank you to my team at the Nuclear Innovation Institute, but thanks to the City of Owen Sound and CNIC for helping us set up this event today. And of course, the BWXT group here on the floor. Terry, thank you so much. The team has been fabulous to help us get this ready for today. So as Mayor Boddy mentioned, my name is Jessica Linthorne, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Nuclear Innovation Institute. I'm also a proud co-chair of the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition. The Nuclear Innovation Institute is located in Port Elgin, Ontario, 30 kilometers from the Bruce Power nuclear generating station. NII is an independent, not-for-profit, and we act as a convener and a connector with a strong focus on raising awareness and improving public education on energy issues, driving thought leadership for the region, and speaking up for nuclear. To this end, NII is pleased to be part of the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, supporting this group as it convenes at exciting events such as this and connects partners together, from local healthcare to government to the public, as well as with the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council. James, thanks for joining us today, and I'm going to pass it over to you, maybe just to start our conversation.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Jessica said that Gary makes sure we all sound good. I think he can make sure you hear us. It's up to us whether we sound good or not, right, Gary? We can't put that on him. Look, firstly, thanks very much for having me today. And Jessica said I'm limited to 10 minutes to kind of talk about and set isotopes up, which would be tough because we'll still be here by lunch if you don't put a time limit on me. First thing I want to say is to thank, again, BWXT and the team for having us here today. Scott, I'm told that you put on this kind of breakfast every morning for your workers, so that's why everybody loves working here, and lunch. But you know, this facility, I'm sure you're all really proud of it. My mother-in-law just lives around the corner from here, so we make my wife and I make very frequent trips to Owen Sound. And there were many, many years on our way to Owen Sound, I'd drive by this location and it was completely empty with a lock on the fence, nobody in the parking lot, and people wondered, you know, what would we ever do with this facility? So it's pretty amazing that just behind me here today, in terms of our nuclear operations business and our refurb project, that this facility is actually making components to help fight climate change and generate electricity. I also see Fred here from OPG, and I do want to recognize the partnership between BWXT and OPG on molybdenum-99 that was mentioned earlier, one of the most impressive projects in the world when it comes to diagnostic medical isotopes. So thanks very much for having us. There's really three things I want to cover before we get into the conversation, and before we talk about the opportunity for this region, I think it's important to sort of set the context about, firstly, what are isotopes and why are they important? And so if you take a step back and you think about modern healthcare, the difference between healthcare today versus 40 years ago, and there's many, but there's three items as it relates to isotopes that stand out from my perspective. The first is when you go to the Owen Sound Hospital today, or you go to your dentist's office, or you go and have a medical procedure, operation anywhere, all of the materials that are used in those evolutions, those activities, they're clean and they're sterile. So if you talk to doctors who carry out procedures every day, the incidence of people who have a procedure, have an operation, and come back to the hospital with an infection today is much lower than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that's because the equipment that our healthcare professionals use is sterile and clean. Medical isotopes are used to sterilize that medical equipment. So just the tools that we're using are clean today and keep people safe. But in terms of cancer, and cancer is something that affects us all, whether it's ourselves, our loved ones, our family members, our neighbors, our colleagues, people in the community, at some point or another, all of us will be impacted by cancer. And if I drew a line right down the middle of this room, 50% of people in this room will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in your life. I guarantee 100% of people will be impacted by it. And when somebody is impacted by cancer, the two most important elements around helping somebody in that condition is to diagnose it and to treat it. And isotopes are used for both. Isotopes are used to diagnose cancer, and that's the type of isotope that I was talking about between OPG and BWXT, to find the cancer on a patient. Where is it? So if treatment is applied, where is it most effective to apply that treatment? 30, 40, 50 years ago, patients had access to a disproportionate amount of radiation treatment because medical professionals didn't have the tools to really know where the cancer was in a surgical sense. So we use isotopes to diagnose cancer. We also use medical isotopes to treat cancer, to target those cancerous cells in the body, and in an ideal world, arrest them and eliminate it. So that's really what isotopes are. So when you think about modern energy, we use electricity to power the lights in the room. Medical isotopes are the form of energy that we use to do those three things. And there's only two ways of making a medical isotope. You make it in a cyclotron, and Canada has the world's largest cyclotron in the world at Triumph Innovations. I think BWXT is a co-owner in that, in Western Canada, and in reactors, either commercial power reactors or research reactors. And really all you're doing is using those facilities to pick up the energy and create a medical isotope. So for over half a century, Canada has been a world leader in the production of medical isotopes. The world has built, modern healthcare has grown around the world relying on these medical isotopes. But over the last 20 years, it's become very apparent that that foundation of the supply of medical isotopes is not strong. So just like on a day like today, when we turn on the lights in this room, we want to know the lights are going to turn on. How can we guarantee the lights turn on? Well, it's because we have a fleet of nuclear reactors, and if one reactor is down for planned maintenance or another reactor is down for refurbishment, we know we have redundancy in other reactors operating. The foundation of medical isotopes was not built on that kind of strong foundation like our electricity system was. So here in Canada, our CANDU Canadian reactors have a unique capability of producing isotope, but we also have a large fleet of them that can provide that redundancy. So before I pass it over to Jess, there's really two other things I just want to leave with people. The first is, and you'll see in the Isotopes for Hope report, our goal as the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council, and that's why we released the Isotopes for Hope report that has a series of recommendations, is to double Canada's production of medical isotopes by 2030. So as countries in the world, as more people get access to the same kind of healthcare treatments that we've become very used to here in Canada, the demand for medical isotopes is going to increase. And if Canada doesn't step up and meet that demand, there's no one else that has the kind of capability we have to meet that. It'll mean people will go untreated, bottom line. So we have an imperative as Canadians to make sure that we fill this supply gap and that we do it in a reliable way. So that's, and I can tell you, if Canada doesn't do it, there are people that are going to go without access to the best cancer treatments. Maybe they may not even be in Canada. They may be in another country around the world. But that's the reality. So there's a responsibility as us as Canadians to lead on this front. The final thing I'll say, and then I'll pass it over to Jessica and really look forward to the discussion here, is why this regional coalition? The first thing I'll say is when we think about a regional coalition, the first thing we have to do is throw away our traditional view of geography. This is not about, I live in Saugeen Shores, we're in Owen Sound today, I mean, the list goes on and on. This is not about what municipality and what county and in what county and in what area. What we're talking about here is a global play. So this is about, firstly, some of these downstream, and we'll talk about the production, how do we bring more of this onshore into Canada, the rest of the value chain? It's about firstly getting it to Canada, then it's about secondly getting it to Ontario, and then it's thirdly about getting it to Southwestern Ontario. And what I have learned in my time on the isotope file is it is interconnected with research institutions, hospitals, producers, the list goes on and on. And if we go at those things all incrementally, we will get beat by some of those people that Ian's talking about. The regions and coalitions that have their act together and provide a comprehensive solution, they get the processing, they get the capability. So as we think about this as a region, it's great that we're here in Owen Sound today, but we need to think of this as Southwestern Ontario. Could go as far as McMaster University in Hamilton, could go as far south as Windsor, as far south as London, and as far north as Tobermory, right? So we haven't exactly defined what it is, but what I do know is the three counties of Bruce, Grey, and Huron have the initial institutional capability to bring that first group together to start to gel this. So I want to thank Ian for his leadership and the NII for their leadership. The most important first step we can do is bring everybody together and agree on the moonshot. And then once we are together, I can guarantee you we will be an unbeatable coalition. And it's not about taking something away from somebody else. There'll be other regional coalitions, I think, around the Durham region. I think there'll be other regional coalitions around the Vancouver, Western Canada region, around cyclotrons. So there'll be other regional coalitions. We're not in competition with any other Canadian regions. We're in competition with bringing this from other countries here to Canada so we can assert and deliver on our leadership role. So I'll leave it at that, Jessica. Was that 10 minutes?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's okay. I wasn't timing, but I was cautious. You were going to answer all the questions I was about to ask you, so I'll have to backtrack for a minute. But before I jump into those questions, I just wanted to say, so thank you for all of that context around the regional approach, the Southwestern Ontario approach. I was chatting with Councillor Middleborough from Owen Sound this morning and just thanking her for joining us and just saying how excited I am with the audience that is here. But what I mentioned to her was that this is the beginning of something big. And this is an opportunity for us to come to the table and work collectively and work collaboratively because there's power in that. It's not competitive between us. It's an opportunity for us to come together. So that was wonderful context, so thanks for that. So you did talk a little bit about the contribution to modern medicine, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about how isotopes contribute to the fight against cancer.
Yeah, for sure. So I brought a prop, and I'm not going to take credit for this because there's a bunch of people in the room that actually designed this, but I'll explain to you what it is. So firstly, let's talk about how we make an isotope first. What is an isotope? So we have a reactor. The reactor is really a large neutron source, and we use it to heat water up to create steam that Scott's folks at BWXT turn into steam, and we drive a turbine. But a nuclear reactor is really a large neutron source. So to make an isotope, in its simplest form, is what you really need to do is expose an element to that neutron source, and that element picks up the energy that's in the reactor, picks up those neutrons. And when it comes out of the reactor, in this case, this is a target that'll be in one of our reactors today here at Bruce Power. It'll go in for 7 days. There's a powder in this called ytterbium-176. It gets exposed to the neutrons in the reactor for a week, and it picks up more energy. And when it comes out, this wants to get back to what it was before it went in the reactor. That's what radiation is. Think of it like I've taken an ice cube out of my fridge and I put it on my hand, and that ice cube wants to get back to what it was before it was frozen. An isotope is exactly the same thing. In the case of these kind of isotopes, they're very short-lived. It's about a week. So I take this out of the reactor. If I let it sit here for a week, After a week, it would be almost back to what it was before. What medical professionals do is process those isotopes to use them on a patient. And the isotope will find the cancer in somebody's body or treat the cancer. In the case of the isotopes that we are producing in this region at Bruce Power, the short-lived isotope called lutetium-177, it's called a theranostic. So what it is it's a diagnostic and a therapy. My words is a heat-seeking missile. It goes in a soluble form into a patient. You could go up to Owen Sound Hospital now, you'd see somebody on an IV, and often on an IV there's medication that is used through IV. They put it in a soluble form and they treat a patient. The patient leaves the hospital and that lutetium has found the cancer without damaging healthy cells and found the cancer cells and worked to destroy them. So that's really what it is. It's about using radiation to, in a targeted way, help a patient. So you can imagine this particular isotope, I'll give you an example. There are over 200 clinical trials and studies underway to use lutetium around the world. Because think about it, if you can treat somebody in a way that both finds the cancer and treats it without damaging the healthy cells, without all of those other impacts on the patient, is that not a pretty appealing cancer treatment? So think about isotope as a heat-seeking missile. It finds what we don't like and helps us treat it or deal with it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So you talked a little bit about, our opportunity as Canadians to be a leader here. And so I'm going to ask you, how would you characterize the global market for isotopes and the opportunity for Canada in this industry? If you could just share a little bit more.
Yeah, so if you think about the world and what we very much have come to, I think, sometimes take for granted in Canada. Don't get me wrong, I know we have a lot of challenges in our healthcare system, but as Canadians, we're very fortunate, firstly, to have a public healthcare system that when one of us is ill, we can go and, usually in life's challenging circumstances, get the best care. I'm not saying it's not without its challenges, but around the world, a lot of people would take, bringing your family member to Princess Margaret or sick kids or Owen Sound for that matter, right? I mean, we are very fortunate with what we have. There are countries all over the world that don't have that. And we're only a country of 36 million people. So think of all the countries around the world that they are growing their middle class. China, India, other countries. And they're starting to get access to the same kind of healthcare technology that we've become accustomed to. But with that comes the need to energize and fuel that. So the demand for isotopes across the world is astronomical. The issue is that the people who are developing treatments for cancer, they have to know the isotope supply is there. If I'm in a company and I'm developing a cancer treatment, I am not going to spend millions and millions of dollars developing a cancer treatment if I don't know there's lutetium there. So the opportunity for Canada is to be that supplier of the isotopes, to say to people, if you develop the cancer treatments, the supply will be there. And that's really the opportunity for Canada.
Yeah, that's great. And that stable supply, right? And that's a good lead into the next question around asking what is the unique role for CANDU nuclear reactors for isotope production? And then second to that, how can Canada advance more in this area?
Yeah, so think about a CANDU reactor. So CANDU stands for Canadian Deuterium Uranium. It's a Canadian design and it's served Canada very well for over 50 years. And right now here in Ontario, 60% of our electricity comes from our CANDU reactors. And that is going to continue till, I think, at least the 2080s through our refurbishment program. What CANDU reactors have, without getting into the reactor physics, is they have a unique neutron a flux in the reactor, number one. But most importantly, they are not, in most reactors, you have one large pressure vessel. So think about a pressure vessel as something that our folks at BWXT would manufacture, and everything nuclear happens inside that. And at CANDU, you have 480 small pressure vessels. And so what that means is there's a lot of monitoring and startup instrumentation that you need to monitor a reactor when it's operating, remove it from service, or bring it into service. And over the last 30 years in our commercial reactors, what's happened is our technology has improved around all of those access points to the reactor that have been built. and we don't need as many of them. So think about it as we have an access point into the reactor where we can shoot in isotopes and let them get irradiated and remove them. So let me just give you some statistics that'll, I think, blow your mind. This particular target will produce enough medical isotope for 150 patient treatments. 150 out of this. In one day, we can do 58 of these in one reactor in one tube. That's what we have in service now. So 150 times 58 in 1 week times 52 weeks a year. We can do up to 3 to 4 tubes per reactor times 8 reactors. So right now these are being produced in a research reactor. And the research reactor would have about 1/1,000,000th of the capacity of one of our power reactors. So we have 8 of them. So the capacity is unlimited. And remember, we have our CANDU reactors operating not to make medical isotopes. They're operating to make electricity. And what's the principle when you're making electricity? Well, when I'm maintaining reactors, I always have some reactors running to maintain electricity supply. So not only do we have the capacity with isotopes, we have the reliability with isotopes, the redundancy. So if one reactor goes off, I have another one producing. Because if I'm in the medical business, I need reliability. Now, if I'm in the medical business today, I'm relying on research reactors. Do I have reliability in a research reactor? No, it's a research reactor. It was never designed to be a commercial reactor. So everybody criticizes the research reactors for their reliability. They're one reactor. They need to go down for maintenance. They need to go down for, they weren't designed to be producing commercial isotopes. They've stepped in, and thank God they did. So we're not competing either with research reactors. We're complementing that capability to really give them that high volume, reliable manufacturing production.
That's great.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Those incredible numbers. So the Isotopes for Hope campaign, your report contains a goal to double isotope production capacity to meet growing global demand by 2030. Yeah. That's not too far off. Does Canada have the infrastructure in place to meet this goal?
Yeah, so I see Melody and Andrew here from the CNIC. Maybe you guys should stand up and let's give them a round of applause. Because they actually wrote the report, I just present it. So this is my only criticism of those two, is I wanted to say quadruple, and they said, James, you can't say quadruple. Now, all joking aside, firstly, the answer is yes, we do have the capacity. So to put things in perspective, if you just look at what BWXT and OPG are doing at Darlington and what we are doing at Bruce Power, we just increased our production of a different isotope there with our Unit 8 outage. Doubling is totally within reach. In fact, I think you could argue we could triple or quadruple it. I think what we wanted to do was make sure that we didn't set a target that people wouldn't believe, right? Because if I'm a pharmaceutical company, I need to see all the numbers behind it, not just, hey, James thinks we can triple or quad. So we made sure the numbers were there to double it. But it is absolutely there. And just to put some of the numbers in perspective for a minute, if you look at the 8 reactors at the Bruce site with just lutetium, if we just maximized our current system, we would be 100% of the lutetium demand as it exists today at only 20% capacity. So it's a very realistic goal. Where we run into problems in realizing that goal is giving the global supply chain a consolidated solution. That they can see, okay, Bruce, you have the production. How are you going to process? How are you going to transport? Where is it going to be located? And that's where this regional coalition is important, because we're really trying to sort of bring that together. So I think it's easily double, if not triple, quadruple. If there's media here, I'm not saying quadruple, I'm saying double. But that's really the goal. If you go to 2050, the number is even more astronomical. Remember, COVID slowed a bit of the growth down for a 2 to 3 year period, and now the world is kind of catching up. But what we also need, and this is in our Isotopes for Hope report, we need to build a regulatory regime that treats these issues far more urgently than they do. We need a regulatory regime that recognizes, it's not acceptable to take 3 years to approve a project that will save a patient's life. And I have to give the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission some credit on this. From when we started this project to when it was in commercial operation, it was less than 24 months. So between now and 2030, when our folks say, hey, do we have enough time? They always kind of challenge me on that. I say, well, we did this one in 2 years, so between now and 2030, you've got 3 runs of 2 years. So we should be able to, and now we've done it, we should be able to really do a lot better than that.
Awesome, that's great. And last question, and it ties in so nicely. So you've talked a little bit about how this coalition, our Southwestern Ontario, will support, but maybe we can wrap up by just sharing a little bit more on how the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition can continue to support the goal to double, triple, quadruple. We won't revise the report though, right, Melody?
Yeah, so firstly, I think the most important thing, there's 2 things I think that we need to do with the coalition. The first is we need to be as inclusive as possible from a geographic, from an institutional point of view, from a corporate point of view. We need to get as large of a group together as possible. And I guarantee you that not that I know this, but this is generally my rule in life, 80% of the items we're very aligned, our interests are aligned. Get as large of a group together, cross-functional, and really put forward a very strong regional piece to this. And I think people around the world will be surprised that this kind of coalition has come together, number one. That then provides an opportunity to talk about what it is we want to do. And for us, a lot of this is really sending a message of we're open for business. We're open for opportunities. So if you are a company that is based in Germany today that processes isotopes and you're thinking, where do I want them? You're looking at, what do you mean? I can go to a coalition and the municipality's there and the company's there and the educational institution is there. It's all there. So to me, that's the most important piece. Coalitions are very rare where you get, think of the people in this room today. This is a very unique, diverse group to get together. Now, we'll all get together as the nuclear industry, the municipalities. I mean, you can kind of, segment this, but to bring everybody together is very unique. But I also think us having a common voice to the provincial and federal governments and also the International Atomic Energy Agency is really, really important. The final 2 things I'll say is I should give a shout out. He's not able to be here today. To the MPP for Bruce Grey Owen Sound, Rick Byers. So tomorrow evening in the Ontario Legislature, I don't know if it's public yet, but it is now, Rick will be introducing a motion to the Ontario Legislature to incorporate isotopes into Ontario's life sciences strategy. Back in 2021, Bill Walker, when he was the MPP, introduced a similar motion, and it received unanimous consent in the Ontario Legislature, which, by the way, doesn't happen very often. Rick's motion today is about, as Ontario is finalizing the life sciences strategy, to do the same. So number one, if you know an MPP out there, get on the phone with them and tell them they need to support that motion. We need 100% support, and it needs to be unanimous. I don't know how anybody can disagree with this isotope opportunity. So I do want to give Rick a shout out. The final thing I'll say is that one of the things we need to not forget is, at the end of the day, it's all about the patients. This is about somebody getting a cancer treatment as a result of our work that wouldn't otherwise. And that's very, very powerful. And if we keep that as our North Star, we're going to be very, very successful together. So I don't know all the pieces to get there, I have to admit, but I do know that whatever some of these elements are that we are going to do next, we can achieve them if we have everybody in this room. If we have to go and figure out all these individual pieces, we will get, as I like to say, nickeled and dimed. If we are together, we have a regional presence with all the ingredients there. It's too good to ignore. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, James, and thanks for joining us today. Thank you.